Welcome to Simpler Bible, a daily journey to biblical understanding. Welcome to episode 140. I'm calling this one Famine, and we are going to jump back over into this text where we were yesterday to chapter 6, and we're going to read just the end of chapter 6. And so remember, Ben-Hadad of Syria has kind of left Israel alone for a little bit, and that's what it says, no more raids against the land of Israel. And then the very next verse says, after Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, mustered his entire army, he went up and besieged Samaria. So he's like, I won't make any more raids against Israel, but what if we just went and attacked it? So that's basically what happens in the space of one verse. And then there was this great famine in Samaria, and they besieged it, until a donkey's head was sold for 80 shekels of silver, and the fourth part of a calves of dove's dung for 5 shekels of silver. So get this picture in your head. The city of Samaria has been surrounded by the Syrian army, and all food and all water has been cut off from them. And so a donkey's head is being sold for 80 pieces of silver. Like, that's how desperate they are for food. And the fourth part, a quarter of a cab of dove's dung, a little thing of dove's dung, would be 5 shekels of silver. That's your food, right? And so as the king of Israel was passing by on the wall, a woman cried out to him, saying, "Help, my lord, O king." And he said, "If the Lord will not help you, how shall I help you? From the threshing floor, from the winepress?" And the king asked her, "What's your trouble?" And she said, "This woman said to me, 'Give me your son that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow.' So we boiled my son and ate him. But on the next day I said to her, 'Give me your son that we can eat him.' But now she's hidden her son." I need you to understand what the woman is asking for help for. The woman is asking for help that he would make the other lady give up her son so they could eat him. We boiled my son yesterday. We ate him yesterday. It's only fair that we boil her son and eat him today. That's what's going on here. The other thing I need you to understand, because this should offend us from a moral sensibility kind of place, but the other thing I need you to understand is that this was foretold by God in Deuteronomy 28. 52 through 57. And God, through Moses, this is days before Moses dies, about a month and a half before the people go into the promised land, God had told Moses in Deuteronomy 28, he'd said, if the people reject me, if they turn away from me, I will bring all these curses upon them. And then he spends these 6 verses, 52 through 57, saying, look, and you will eat your own kids. If you turn away from me, you'll devour your own kids. And the most delicate woman among you will not share her placenta with her friends or her neighbors or her husband. And the most refined man among you won't share the meal of his son with his neighbor. Like, this is what's going to happen to the people who reject me. And so you need to understand that the reason that they are in this situation is because they have rejected God. All right? And so when the king heard these words of the woman, he tore his clothes. Now he was passing by on the wall, and the people looked, and behold, he had sackcloth beneath his body. It's goat hair or something of the like. It meant he was mourning. And he said, "May God do so to me, and more also, if the head of Elisha, the son of Shaphat, remains on his shoulders today." So I need you to catch this. He's like, man, I can't believe that this has happened to us. Why? Elisha had been sparing the people of Israel from Ben-Hadad and the people of Syria. And just earlier, the people of Syria were in Samaria. He could have killed them all. And now he's mad at Elisha. He goes, I should have killed my enemies. Why didn't Elisha warn us? Whatever. He's mad at Elisha. He's ready to kill him. So Elisha was sitting in his house, and the elders were with him. And they come to kill him, but Elisha escapes their grasp. Now, jump with me into chapter 7, verse 1. Elisha said this, "Hear the word of the Lord. Thus says the Lord, tomorrow about this time, a seah of fine flour shall be sold for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley for a shekel." The day before, you were buying dove crap for 5 shekels. And he goes, tomorrow you'll be able to get barley and you'll be able to get fine flour for just a shekel. And the captain on whose hand the king leaned said to the man of God, "If the Lord himself," and I think this statement's so funny, "if God himself should make windows in heaven, could this thing happen?" He's like, could God even do this? Which is just not a good thing to say. But Elisha said to him, "You'll see it with your own eyes, but you won't get to eat any of it." Now there were 4 men who were lepers at the entrance of the gate. And they said to one another, so they're not allowed to be in the city. They said to one another, "Let's enter the city." Where am I? Verse 3. 4 men who were lepers at the entrance of the gate, and they said to one another, "Why are we sitting here until we die?" If we say, let us enter the city, the famine's in the city and we'll die there. If we sit here, we die also. So now let's go over to the camp of the Syrians. If they spare us, we live. And if they kill us, we die. So these 4 lepers sitting outside the city go, let's go into the city. If we go into the city, we'll die there. If we stay here by the gate, we'll die here. Let's try going over to the Syrian army. If they're nice to us, great. And if they kill us, we're going to die anyway. That's their attitudes, right? So they rose at twilight to go to the camp of the Syrians, but when they came to the edge of the camp, the Syrians, behold, there was no one there. For the Lord had caused the army of the Syrians to hear the sound of chariots and of horses, and the sound of a great army, so that they said to one another, behold, the king of Israel has hired against us the king of the Hittites and the king of Egypt to come against us. So they're hearing the sound of an army. The Philistines heard the same thing in one of the battles that David did with the Philistines. So the Syrians fled away at twilight. They abandoned their tents, they abandoned their horses, they abandoned their donkeys, leaving the camp as it was, and they fled for their lives. If you're fleeing for your life, don't you think it would be faster to take the horses and the donkeys? Anyway, they're out of their mind and they're running. And so when the lepers came to the edge of the camp, they went into a tent and they ate and they drank. And they carried off silver and gold and clothing and hid them. And then they came back and entered another tent and carried off things from it. And then they went and they hid them. And then they said to one another, what we are doing is not right. This day is a day of great news. If we are silent and wait until the morning light, punishment will overtake us. Now therefore come, let's go tell the king's household. So they came and they called to the gatekeepers of the city, and they said, we came to the camp of the Syrians, and behold, there was no one to be seen or heard, nothing but the horses tied and the donkeys tied, and the tents were left as they were. And the gatekeepers called out, and they told it to the king. The king arose in the middle of the night and said to his servants, I'll tell you what those Syrians have done to us. They know we're hungry. Therefore they've gone out of the camp, and they've hid themselves in the open country, thinking when they come out of the city, we'll gather them alive and get into the city. One of the servants said, look, let us take some of the men. Let's take 5 of the remaining horses, seeing that those who are left here will fare like the whole multitude of Israel who have already perished. Let's send and see. So they took 2 horsemen, and the king sent them after the army of the Syrians, and he said, go and see. So they went after them all the way to the Jordan, and behold, all the way was littered with garments and equipment that the Syrians had thrown away in their haste. And the messengers returned and told this to the king. The people went out and they plundered the camp of the Syrians. So a seah of flour was sold for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley was sold for a shekel, according to the word of the Lord. Now the king had appointed the captain on whose hand he had leaned, the captain who said, could God do this even if he opened the windows of heaven? And the people trampled him in the gate so that he died, as the man of God had said when the king came down to him. So this guy, the king's assistant, is appointed to handle the distribution of the food. And the people are so hungry for it, they trample them. And what had Elisha said? You'll see all of this, but you won't get to eat it. For when the man of God had said to the king, 2 seahs of barley will be sold for a shekel and a seah of fine flour about this time tomorrow, the captain had said, if the Lord himself would make windows in heaven, who could do such a thing? And he said, you will see it with your own eyes, but you will not eat it. And so it happened, for the people trampled him in the gate, and then he died. Now Elisha had said to the woman whose son he had restored to life, remember that story a few chapters ago, arise and depart with your household, sojourn wherever you can, for the Lord has called for a famine, and it will come about for 7 years. So the woman arose and did according to the word of the man of God. She went with her household and sojourned in the land of the Philistines for 7 years. At the end of the 7 years, when the woman returned to the land of from the land of the Philistines, she went and appealed to the king for her house and her land. Now the king was talking with Gehazi, the leper, the man of God, the servant of the man of God, saying, tell me all the things that Elisha has done. And while he was still telling the king how Elisha had restored the dead to life, behold, the woman whose son he had restored to life appeared. And the king said, look, my lord, the king, this is the woman, and this is her very son that Elisha raised to life. Now, when the king asked the woman, she told him, and the king appointed officials for her and said, restore all that was hers together with all the produce of the fields from the day that she left until now. Now Elisha came to Damascus. Elisha is in Damascus. That's important to remember. This is Syria, okay? Ben-Hadad, the king of Syria, was sick. And when it was told him, the man of God has come here, the king said to Hazael, take a present with you, go and meet the man of God, and inquire of the Lord through him, and say, shall I recover from this sickness? So Hazael went to meet him. So Elisha's traveling in Syria now. And Hazael comes to him, brings a presents, all kinds of goods of Damascus, 40 camel loads, brings him 40 camel loads of stuff. And when he came and he stood before him, he said, your son, Ben-Hadad, the king of Syria, is sick, and said, shall I recover from this sickness? And Elisha said, go and say to him, you shall certainly recover, but the Lord has shown me that he will certainly die. And he fixed his gaze and he stared at him until he was embarrassed, and the man of God wept. Hazael said, "Why are you weeping?" And he said, "Because I know all the evil that you will do to the people of Israel. You need to keep Hazael in mind because he's going to do a lot of wicked things to Israel. You will set on fire their fortresses. You will kill their young men with the sword and dash in pieces their little ones and rip open their pregnant women." Now, you might remember this, you might not. In 1 Kings 19, God told Elijah, he says, go and anoint Elisha to be your successor. Go and anoint Jehu to be king of Israel, and go and anoint Hazael to be king of Syria. Elijah never did that. And so now Elisha is the one declaring to Hazael, you're about to be king. So Hazael said, what is your servant? I need you to catch this. Catch the wickedness of this. Elisha has just said, you'll set on fire the fortresses of Israel. You'll kill their young men with the sword. You'll dash in pieces the little ones. You'll rip open the pregnant women. And Hazael doesn't say, I would never do such a thing. He says, what is your servant who's just a dog who could do these kinds of great things? Do you hear that? Like, do you hear the wickedness? He's like, man, he goes, that would make me a really great man to be able to do all that. That'd make me powerful. I'm just a lowly dog that I should do these great things. And it's just wicked, wicked heart. Elisha answered, the Lord has shown me that you will be king over Syria. So he departed from Elisha. He came to his master, who said to him, what did Elisha say to you? He said, he told me you'll be fine. You'll certainly recover. But the next day, Hazael took the bedcloth, dipped it in water, put it over the king's face until he died, and Hazael became king in his place. In the 5th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, when Jehoshaphat was king of Judah, Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, began to reign. He was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. He walked in all the ways of the kings of Israel, as the house of Ahab had done, for the daughter of Ahab was his wife. And he did whatever was evil in the sight of the Lord. Yet the Lord was not willing to destroy Judah for the sake of David his servant, since he had promised to give him an inheritance to his sons forever. That's in 2 Samuel 7. In his days, Edom revolted against the rule of Judah and set up a king of their own. And then Joram passed over to Zaire with all of his chariots and rose by night, he and the chariot commanders, and they struck down the Edomites who surrounded him, but his army fled home. So Edom revolted from the rule of Judah to this day, and then Libnah revolted at the same time. Now the rest of the acts of Joram and all that he did, are they not written in the books of the Chronicles of the Kings? In the 12th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, Ahaziah, the son of Joram, the king of Judah, began to reign. Ahaziah was 22 years old, and he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Athaliah. She'll actually be the only queen to ever rule over the land of Judah. I say Athaliah, it might be Athaliah, however you want to say it, but she will be the only queen to rule over the land of Judah. And she was she was a granddaughter of Omri, king in Israel. He also walked in the house of Ahab and did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, as the house of Ahab had done, for he was son-in-law to the house of Ahab. He went to Joram, the king of Ahab, to make war, or the son of Ahab, to make war against Hazael, king of Syria, at Ramoth Gilead, and the Syrians wounded Joram. So this will be really important. The Syrians wounded Joram, and King Joram returned to be healed in Jezreel of the wounds that the Syrians had given him at Ramah. And when he fought against Hazael, the king of Syria, and Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, went down to Joram, the son of Ahab, in Jezreel. So we have these two kings. We have Ahaziah, the king of Israel, and we have Ahaziah, the king of Judah, and Joram, the king of Israel, are both meeting together. They both went and fought against Hazael, and they have both been kind of shamed, and they've been sent home. And that'll be important that those two kings are together for when we meet Jehu tomorrow. Read ahead if you want, 2 Kings 9 and 10, and we'll see you for episode 141. Thank you so much for journeying with us today at Simpler Bible. Together, you and I have looked at another passage of Scripture and come to know the Bible a little bit better and enjoy God more fully. This video, along with all of our videos, can be found at simplerbible.com, where you can enjoy our Through the Bible in a Year course. You can also enjoy a wealth of resources, blog posts that take you a little bit deeper into the text, a Bible study format that you can use with your small groups or your family, and we're creating new content all the time, all with the commitment to help us be people who know and enjoy God more fully. Thank you so much for being part of it, and we can't wait to see you next time.